What's up, Shorty? It's your boy Who's 274. We back with another One Piece chapter after the random drought they gave us last week. All right. Now I ain't gonna cap. I don't did this motherfucking introduction 3 times already, cause the video started glitching out halfway through. You feel me? So I don't give a fuck about being enthusiastic as I was 2 motherfucking introductions ago. Okay. So anyway, we here today back with another One Piece chapter review. God damn it. I did make a video earlier this week about motherfucking the spoilers. We discussed the spoilers and made a fucking review video about what we thought was gonna come of the spoilers. We gonna review the motherfucking chapter, and after we review the chapter, sometime later this week, we gonna do a fucking video about goddamn it, what we got right, what we got wrong, and what we would have preferred happen. Okay? Starting off with the motherfucking reveal about the motherfucking shrine Yamato was at. All the motherfuckers we thought it was Gecko Moria. Again, this is part of the introduction that I don't did 3 times already, so sorry if I gave you the fucking reveal dry as hell, but it was Gecko Moria. Blame my internet. I'm pissed. Okay, so let's let you see it. As you see, it's Gecko Moria. I'm waiting for the glitches to start because this one they start happening. But it's fucking Gecko Moria. He was a Kozuki the whole time, while Odin was tap dancing in the motherfucking streets of Wano, thinking Kaido and Orochi was gonna keep their end of the deal. Gecko Moria, Kozuki Moria, I should say, was in the streets fighting. That's when he fought Kaido and countered Kaido. He tried to defend his land, his country. He lost horribly. It took a big toll on him. He left, became fat, and fucking the Gecko Warrior that we know today. Okay? Moving the fuck on. I slam up this damn blunt. Take me a sip of water. This shit got me pissed off this morning. Keep going. Switch back. It's too early to let y'all see all that. So we start off, it says, a certain C. Rogers. What? A certain C. Rogers ship, the Oro Jackson. Oro Jackson. That was kind of like a tongue twister, but it started off kind of weird. So it's just like the dialogue bubble that's letting us know where we at and what's going on. And it says a certain C. Rogers ship, the Oro Jackson. It don't sound right, but anyway, in the age of the legendary pirates, we see somebody screaming, Captain, Captain Rogers. I heard Shaki opened up a place on Pirate Island. They say it's unbelievable. So we starting off with the goon, hit blunt. We starting off with the goon, with the man's goon D Rogers getting word that Shakuyaku has opened up a bar on Hachinosu. And Rogers sitting there with the stank face. Let me let y'all see this stank ass face this man got. Goon D Rogers sitting here with the stank face cause he ain't seen Shocky in a while. She say we worried we never see her again when she quit being the Empress. But now we know where she is. Let's go. Doesn't Rocks control Pirate Island? Somebody else says. And we see Gabon sitting there just looking like with the little 3 dots over his head. He ain't said much, but he concerned because he going too. And then Gabon throws his arm over Rayleigh and says, Say, Rayleigh, is it just me, or has Rogers been in a bad mood ever since you two spoke in his quarters? And Rayleigh says, So let's see what they talked about, because we're going to the flashback. And Scopper says, What did you discuss? Rayleigh says, Nothing. Hits Blunks. We finna see what they discuss. Hit that shit again. hmm So we see Rayleigh says, I wasn't going to say anything to the crew, but I figure I should talk to you one-on-one, Rogers. Was this during our last fight with the Kuja pirates just before she quit with the question mark? I don't get it. I'm confused. They ain't really tell us what they talked about, but I guess they gonna show us. But did Rayleigh confess his love for Shaki or something? Then we see Rogers saying Shakuyaku did seem off back then, like she was sick or something. I worried she stepped down because of her health. But you're telling me she gave you this during that battle? Yeah, I was speechless. Okay, so Shaki gave Rayleigh a note during that battle. I guess, okay, let's see. It says this can only be described as a love letter, Roger says. The letter says, come and make me yours, Shakuyaku. She gave Rayleigh a letter that said, come and make me yours. And then Roger screams at Rayleigh and says, and you're not interested? Rayleigh says, I'd be lying if I said that. I just don't want to be tied down. And then Roger screams and says, well, I do. Hey, the gooning is real, shorty. This man Roger's a fool. So Shaku gave Rayleigh a love letter saying, "Come put that thing on me." You feel me? And Roger's mad because Rayleigh don't seem interested. But Rachel like, dog, don't get it wrong, shorty. I want that poem. You feel me? That's national treasure poem. Who wouldn't want that? You feel me? I just don't want to be tied down. You feel me? Shorty got a whole love sickness. You feel me? She need me. She need that thing to a degree I don't want to give. The thing about the love sickness though, you don't have to be with that person 24/7 all the time. One, the woman just has to leave in pursuit of, well, not even so because Gloriosa did. She left and well yeah, she didn't get sick. She just had the bedtime line where she grew up ugly. She didn't grow up sexy because she didn't, get her life fulfillment. We all know the good timeline, bad timeline Oda talks about when it comes to how people age, especially the women in One Piece. We're not gonna discuss that here. But yeah, so I just think that it's just the understanding, the knowledge of the person reciprocates and returns the love. I don't think you feel me, but it's not even just that. Yeah, yeah. Because Gloriosa she counters that, like I said. But yeah, you don't even gotta be tied down. The woman just has to leave the in pursuit of love. Once she leaves the island in pursuit of love, she's cured from the sickness. Because Gloriosa would have been dead. Did Gloriosa die from love sickness though? I don't think Gloriosa died from love sickness. Yeah, cause she grew old and brought back she got exiled and she brought back Hancock. She the one who introduced Hancock. So yeah, with the love sickness, you don't have to be with that person 24/7 for the rest of your life. You just gotta leave the island in pursuit of love. And if you wanna grow old sexy and not grow old ugly like Gloriosa did, if you want to get old the same way Shaki did and stay pretty, it's you just gotta at least know that the love is reciprocated for that, knowing that he loves you too, or that he accepts your love at least. You feel me? So, and then Rod, just like he said, well, Rayleigh said he don't want to be tied down. Rod just like shit, I do. Fuck is you time out, boy? You tweaking? You seen them legs on her? I do. And then Roger says, "Come on, man, I ain't giving up." And then one of the crewmates says, "Huh? You're suddenly," he said, "Huh? You're energetic all of a sudden, Roger." And then we see Rayleigh smiling. I guess Roger said he ain't giving up on that poom. Pirates live to plunder, and we don't stop till the prize is claimed. Ain't that right, fellas? And then one of the pirate mates says, "Is he still talking about Shocky?" And somebody else starts laughing. They said, "Gotta be. Why else would we go to Rock's Island of all places? Everyone's got an equal chance. Let's go after her." And then somebody says, "I'm hungry. Make food." Somebody else says, "It's already done. Dig in." Okay, that's Shank. Shank says, "I'm hungry. Make food." Calls out to a guy named Marks. I guess Marks is the cook. So we get some dialogue saying sometime later, 40 years ago, the Holy Land of marriage was. So this is 40 years ago in the Holy Land. We see some dialogue bubbles saying, "You're impatient, Garland. The previous competition just ended." Garland responds and says, "I'm aware, but while we were competing, another assessment well, he said while we were completing another assignment, we briefly stopped at that island. Completing. I said competing. I didn't see the L. I'm sorry. So let's reread that. Garland says, "I'm aware, but while we were completing another assignment, we briefly stopped at that island." It's crazy how when you remove the L, completing can become competing just like that. Let's see. And then we actually see Garland inside the room where the Gorosei is normally kicking it at, that empty ass room with just those chairs where they be staring at the walls out in the windows all day. Um, he says it's a non-affiliated state, but it has a unique culture. We tried offering them membership in the world government, but they declined. So he said they have unique culture, something about their culture, the things that they do, the way that they operate, the history that they have, because you know culture has to do with history. So from the spoilers, it says something about I didn't dive too much in that into the spoilers because you know I didn't can speculate much, but I'm thinking it got something to do with Joy Boy for sure. It got something to do with the history. It got something to do with the Void Century, and I think specifically Joy Boy or the D. 'Cause, you know, culture comes from history. But they declined Garland's offer to, make them a member of the world government. Shanks then says, while their abundant resources would certainly prove valuable for us, we just made an outrageous discovery. So not only was it the unique culture that interested him, they made an outrageous discovery. It was a completely unexpected find. And he says, and the great one will surely be pleased with it. In these 2 years' time, I strongly urge you to hold the next hunt at God's Valley. And we already knew who it was, but we get another introduction of him for like the fifth time. God's Knight, Sviggling family, Saint Garland, future elder. So now we cut over to Hachinosu. We gonna switch the view now because we don't viewed enough without y'all. Y'all can see the rest with us. I mean, no action, but so far it's a entertaining chapter. So we cut over to Shaki's ripoff bar on Pirate Island. We see some people screaming, "Get in line, get in line. Get in a single file line, you idiots." And then somebody else says, "What is that much? I don't have that kind of money." Another person says, "Come back, come to the back. You can work it off with 2 years of unpaid labor." And we see somebody in Shocky face going and saying, "I came all the way to the North Blue. I hear you serve some great whiskey." And that's and that Shocky makes a mean stew. That's what he heard. He heard she makes a great whiskey and that Shocky makes a mean stew. She says he a cute compliment like that makes me smile. She running their ass for they money for they bread. She know what she doing. But I'm not gonna personally cook for people like you. She's just how I dreamed. I'm so happy. Shocky-san, my special bean stew is ready. But we're out of whiskey. She said use the cheap rum instead, and they just going crazy. They don't care. She's saying all that in their face, shorty. She ripping their ass off. She said I ain't cooking for nobody but Rayleigh. Anyways, here's your top quality whiskey. Three cheers for our host, or for our host, for served. Hell no, they funny as hell. So then we see Rox has entered. Shocky says, what happened, Rox? I'm kind of sad that Satisfied Grand isn't for me anymore. Eh, you see what I say and what I mean? Shocky is a representation of how I be telling these guys, zoom in on me. She's a representation of how I be telling these guys how some women are. Some women, take Shocky for example, got all the hoes in the world that she can have if she wants, but she don't pay none of them no attention really. Even though they all falling all over the floor for her, and they all in her inbox 24/7, she don't pay none of them no attention. She might get some lunch money from one of them here and there, but she don't get no fuck about them because she got her eyes on that one guy, Rayleigh, that just don't want her. They always want the guy that just don't want them for some reason. And the moment you can be one of her least favorite people on the list of her, you feel me, friend zone guys. And the moment you stop gooning over her and turn your ass to something else, now all of a sudden it's an issue. What I tell people is you can have a girl that got five niggas, a main nigga, and five side niggas. Okay, let's put it like that. So that's six total. A main nigga and five side niggas. And side nigga number six is her least favorite. So that's the seventh guy in her life. Side nigga number six. He the least favorite. The moment he find him a girl that he can actually vibe with and rock with, now all of a sudden she is down his back. What's wrong with you? You been acting different and trying to argue with him like he a main nigga or something. Shocky lit dead ass giving that energy right here. What happened, Rocks? I'm kind of sad that Satisfied Grand isn't for me anymore. And then Rocks just saying, And then BC Big Mom saying her famous mama. I see woman's intuition is a scary thing, huh? And then Rock says, shut up. I said it's none of your business. Somebody else says, no, that's John. Captain John says, what's going on? Stussy says it has to be a woman. The guy's grinning like he's expecting a kid. And then as that happens, we see Rogers and his crew bust right through the door. Shocky, I've come for you. And Gabon right behind him, Shaki Chan and everybody, it's me. And then one guy in the back said, now somebody in the back says, it's the Roger Pirates. And we see Shaki, oh, Roger. And Roger, and as you see Rock's butt heads, Roger, how many times do I gotta tell you that this is my island? And then Roger says, didn't you hear fighting at Shaki's is forbidden? So stuff it, you porcupine. So I guess they already had encounters with each other by then. It seems like I would have loved to see the first encounter or any type of earlier encounter, especially if it involved in a fight. But let's see if what I speculated comes of this, you feel me? Rock says, isn't there a huge line out there? How'd you get in? Roger says there was a line I hardly noticed. Drink up, everybody. Hey, he whooped the whole line, Shorty Rogers. Shuddy Rogers is a fool, boy. Rogers is a fool, bro. He dangerous, bro. Rogers a menace, bro. They think Luffy was a menace, bro. Rogers was a menace. Everybody drink up. Hey, yeah. And then we see somebody saying, I can't stand those guys. They're so nosy. That's Edward Newgate's. Okay, somebody says put it on Newgate's tab. And then Newgate says, nah, leave it on rocks. So we see we see Shocky saying, Roger, where's Rayleigh's son? While he gooning over her little ass, she asking for Rayleigh. And then next thing you know, we see Kia. Is that you, Rogers? I wanted to see you again so badly. Now let me on your ship. And as we see Gloriosa tackle the fuck out Rogers. I don't know how you thought you was gonna go down and avoid her. Rogers said, I told you, no, I'm not into lovey-dovey women who throw themselves at me. So you want to chase. So we see now Shaki got clothes on the leash. She got a white robe on up underneath that black cooking's gown. Cause at first when she first opened up the bar on Chief Shorty, that's all she had. I went back and looked at that chapter. All she had on was that black thing on phono. Whore. So I didn't see the rest of it, but while Shaki was asking for Rayleigh, she said, where's Rayleigh? I told him to come, but he said he wasn't feeling well, so he's napping on the ship. That's what Roger said. No, so Gloriosa is now responding to Rogers and says, but if Shocky asked to be it be different, that makes no sense. Shocky says, I'll pass. And Roger seems upset by that. And then Roger says, yo, isn't Newgate still here? I want to drink with him. And then Big Mom says he left. Roger is thinking to himself, damn it, Rayleigh, why didn't you come? And it seems like they're singing, they're drinking, singing Bink Sake. Um, Says Shaki falling out. She says, sigh, yeah, she fell out, she fainted. Somebody says, whoa, Shaki's fainted. Empress Shaki, I want to take care of her. Let me help. And then we see Gloriosa says, move, boys, keep away from her. It says Shakuyaku's rule ensured that everyone coming to the island to visit her establishment will be granted safe passage. Even the fierce of pirates would keep the peace if they cross paths. Back at sea, all bets were off. As we see Rogers and Rocks looking menacingly at each other, I can probably assume. It's letting us know they chilling there, but at sea they was, you feel me? That's just only because they was at Shocky's bar, and everybody wanted to see Shocky. But out on sea, it was up, straight belt to ass. And then we cut over to the realm of dead and Elbath. We see Loki holding on to a tree as it looks like the way from it's drawn, wind pressure being thrown at him. The tree snaps. We see all the bears and his underworld friends, the monsters down there. They look like they being blown back also, and we see a young Hydrogen also under the same circumstances. And what's going on? We see a bald head ass Harold who still got his horns clashing with rocks. They clashed swords and knocked each other back, and we see Roger screaming, Harold, the government's really got you wrapped around their finger. And then Harold says, I was torn. As he swings at Roger, Roger leaps in the air to dodge. Harold says, this is really something worth, and then Roger says, is this really something worth killing your friend over? And in the end, you just bow down to them. You dumbass, you're being their tool. Oh no, so that was Harold saying that. So Harold saying I was torn. Is this really something worth killing your friend over? So Harold did acknowledge Rox as his friend. So as Rox is coming down from dodging a blow, it looks like he's swinging back now, saying in the end you just bow down to them. You're a dumbass. You're being their tool. As he clocks Harold on top of the head with his sword, it looks like he actually smacks him in the horn, one of his horns, and he says, "Is this their answer? They see you giants as nothing but a military asset. You will be enslaved as soldiers." And we see that blow doesn't really do much to Harold. 'Cause, like, we know how Rock's his sword attacks are described. It's like a cannonball attack. You feel me? So I thought that maybe after seeing that panel up there that this was how Harold horns got took off. But I forget they say Harold ripped his own horns off. But maybe Rock's at least damaged them or something. So Rock says, "What happened to your warrior pride? Don't you have your own will?" As we see Harold then, like I said, didn't take much damage from that blow. Oh, that's because it didn't hit his horn. He actually blocked it with his sword. I could see the sword right there now. So actually he actually parried rocks as we see Harold then throw rocks off, saying, "Quit talking like you know everything." Rocks is on the ground, Harold is screaming, our warriors graded a history of violence. Elbath is shackled by it, held back from achieving true peace. And then we see Rocks get up. Wait, it says something about, yeah, okay, Harold says shackled by true peace, whatever. And then we see Harold having a flashback of something of his time with the people he made bonds with in the other nations. Somebody saying, "You seem to have a good heart, Harold, but a long time ago this country was attacked by giants." He says that kind of fear doesn't fade so easily. Sorry. Harold says, "Listen, Rocks, no matter how foolish the celestial dragons may be, they still have the influence in the world to bring Elbath into the loop." Harold a bitch. I keep saying this, bro, but Harold he's an idiot, bro. He a dumbass, bro. He a dumbass. You gonna sacrifice everything you created with everybody else to join the government at the end of the day anyway. Because once you join the government, all the non-affiliated nations that you became allies with, you are then going to be against them. If I was the king of Elbath, if I knew what the government was like Harold claims he does, I would literally choose to just try to make what I can make of Elbath becoming more, allied with other nations on my own. I couldn't turn on people. Like, I get Rox is a bad guy, but you got more of a bond with him than you got with anybody in the government, bro. Well, we gonna speak on that on another later video, but Harold, man, you ain't right. And then Rock says, "Stop it." He says, "You cowardly rat," as he jumps up and hits Harold in the torso with one of his cannonball swings. And Harold goes flying back. Rock says, "Consider our business closed. You won't be getting another invite from me again." And then Harold is on the ground screaming, "I'm king. I can't throw away my people's lives by following a villain like you into a losing battle. You ain't throwing away nobody's lives. Y'all been doing just fine this whole time, the way y'all been operating this whole damn time. That y'all been doing just fine. It ain't throwing away y'all people's lives just by giving up on trying to get buddy buddy with the government, bro. What you trying to achieve can still be done in the long run. You trying to take the shortcut, bro. You bitching out." And it says we get dialogue saying there was no true conclusion, but this unorthodox friendship had to come to an end. The two would not meet again for some time. As we see an outer view of, the entire L bath, and we see conquerors hockey, just lightning just beaming from it. And it says they will not meet again, not until the day of a certain incident. And we see somebody, Loki, actually sitting down on the shores of the underworld by Ida's bar, saying more news about rocks as he's reading a newspaper. Ida says he isn't coming back, Loki. Loki says, "Shut up, you lying hag." Ida says, "Would you like some juice?" And Loki says, "Okay." So yeah, they had, just like the spoiler said, they Loki has lightened up to her a little bit. The disrespect hasn't stopped, but he at least is receiving her goodwill. So we see 39 years ago, we went from 44 years ago now to 39 years ago in the West Blue. And this is actually God's Valley. We could tell from how it looked. Hit blunt, boys. We see somebody saying, "Ah, two twin boys. They're so cute." And they got your red hair. As we see some woman with, I'm guessing, red hair based on what they say, I'm pushing the stroller. And it said in the spoilers also, I hope that somebody else says, I hope that they grow up to be as bright as you. So whoever this woman is, they gooning over her over here. Somebody else says, don't worry, we'll pitch in since the daddy is away. And then the lady with the red hair says, thank you, mister. And then somebody else asks her, have you settled their names for them? And we see Shanks and Shamrock. Okay, so it was 44 years ago that I seen people saying this might mean that Shamrock is not Shanks in Garland, Shanks and the Shamrock's father. But it said 44 years ago is when not Shamrock, Garland showed up to God's Valley and have given that report about the mission he had there. That was 44 years ago. No, it's 40 years ago. Okay, 40 years ago for sure. Definitely. 40 years ago, right? Garland was there. And then we get 39 years ago. So that's literally a year later in God's Valley. We see this lady being born with brand new twin baby boys that, so are so young that they ask her, do you even got a name for them yet? This is definitely could still be Garland's kids. He came here with this culture, maybe the culture that they had in the history that they got or something, you feel me? Maybe they breeded strong warriors. Like I said, maybe it has something to do with a lineage and Joy Boy, you feel me? People from the Void Century. And Garland was like, yeah, I need to breed with this lady because those kids that I can have can be good assets to the world government. So I'm still speculating that Saint Figure Garland is definitely still their father because they got his last name and everything. So yeah, and they said since the dad's away, of course the dad's away. Figure Garland will not be able to stay there to raise them kids with her. He got to go back and be Emu's bitch. Shit, hit blunt. That's it. So nothing that I speculated from the reviews came true in this chapter. Okay, it's no need to even. I'm still gonna make a video later, but nothing that I speculated came true. Um, we didn't see the woman that Rox was in love with now, like I thought we would. I thought we was gonna see her and seeing her was gonna be the big red flag that Buggy had some ties to Rox as being Rock's child also. Um, even though it's Blackbeard's mom, I just figured since Rox looked like Blackbeard that the mother was gonna resemble we was gonna get a reveal of the mother and she was gonna look like Buggy. But that could still happen. It just didn't happen in this chapter. At least we found out that Rox has a love interest. Um, didn't really care much about the reveal of Shank's mother, and still don't. I don't know what to speculate about that outside of saying it got something to do with lineage to Joy Boy or somebody from the Void Century. So we just gonna wait to see what comes of that of the next chapter. And as you guys see, it says chapter end. I don't see anything saying break next week or nothing. So if they pop up with a break next week, they did us how they did us last time and gave us the okey doke out the blue. But I speculated that we was gonna get like some dialogue between Rogers and Rocks, or at least a little clash between them where Rocks was gonna be trolling Rogers and, be telling him things and asking him questions about the way the world is that sparks the interest in Rogers to go from just being free and doing what he want to seeking the answers of the world. Cause right now Rogers do not have no interest in seeking the answers of the world at all. He's more interested in Shaki than anything. So I'm speculating that it could still happen, even though it didn't happen in this chapter, that by the time they clash at God's Valley, that's when Rock's gonna be having all this dialogue with Rogers that's gonna get him interested. Roger's gonna be like, okay, this man went this far, he did all this for a reason. He gonna see with his own eyes at God Valley all the things the government is doing. He gonna wonder why. They gonna take Shanks for a reason. Yeah, something gonna happen. That's gonna spark his interest, but it didn't happen in this chapter. So I was completely wrong. But this is Who 74 signing out, and we'll see you guys next week. Cause again, it doesn't say break.